All right, in this section of the macromolecule notes, we're going to look at proteins. We've got protein function, structure, monomers, polymers. So this is a continuation of our macromolecules. Remember, there are four. We've looked at carbohydrates, we've looked at lipids. Now we're going to focus on proteins. Okay? Just to get the basic information, proteins, their monomers, their single units, their building blocks are called amino acids. We can put a bunch of amino acids together, and that's how our proteins are made. Our proteins are hundreds of thousands of amino acids long. And when you get a protein built, a protein that is completely formed is going to be called a polypeptide. So the polymer of our protein, or of our protein, is called a polypeptide. All right, let's start looking at functions. Most of the time when you think of functions of proteins, we think of muscles. And we think of foods like different types of meats or meat products. But that's not all proteins are for. There's a lot of other very important functions that proteins do for us. A big one is going to be enzymes. Proteins act as enzymes, and we're going to talk in more detail later about what enzymes are. But as far as functionality of proteins, we get energy from food that we eat. That's why we eat food. If the energy that we got, if those reactions in our system, in our body, did not break that food down quick enough to get the energy, we would all die. And to make sure that those reactions happen quickly enough, we have enzymes, because they help speed up those chemical reactions so we get the energy on a timely manner, that we get it when we as soon as we need it. Let's see, another type of function would be defense. Antibodies that our immune system builds up to help recognize viruses and other foreign substances in our body. Proteins help build those antibodies to help keep us from getting infections and diseases from those foreign invaders. And then transport. Our body gets gets oxygen transported to all the different parts through our blood. And a big component of our blood that helps transport oxygen is hemoglobin. Proteins help make the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin helps transfer oxygen from our lungs to all the different major organs and functional processes in our body that need oxygen. So oxygen transport through hemoglobin is another very important function of proteins. Some more functions. Proteins act as support. They build fibrous thread-like structures like ligaments that connect bones to bones, and tendons that connect muscles to bones, and our bones. They build these things. They build the collagen within our skin to allow it to stretch. They're the keratin in our hair that helps form our hair. So all of the support parts of our organism, of our life structure, come from protein. What we usually think of as protein, muscle support is going to be functional of proteins. Okay, proteins allow our muscles to be broken down, to create memory, to expand and contract, to move our body and move things by the use of our body. And then regulation. Eventually we'll get to a unit called gene regulation, and there are different things, different processes that occur in our body that take energy. Well, if we're not using one of those processes, why use the energy to make that process work? We don't need it. So what proteins can do is they can turn off, they can regulate those processes by turning them off if we don't need them, save energy, and then when we do need them, they can turn them back on. So they act as regulators. Okay, let's get to a structure of an amino acid. Remember, amino acid is a monomer of a protein. It starts with carbon, basic building block. Carbon is very good at building strong structures, very stable structures. It can bond with itself. Okay, it makes 4 bonds, so it is very good at being a stabilizer. So it starts with a central carbon. It's going to have a hydrogen connected to it. It's going to have a new type of compound we haven't heard of before. It's going to have an amino group. Notice the N, that's the nitrogen that's bonded to carbon. And then it has a couple hydrogens bonded to that. That's called an amino group. So it has nitrogen, something different than from carbohydrates and lipids. It also has something called a carboxyl group, another carbon attached to the other side with oxygen and hydroxide. You notice the structure is going to kind of look like a T when it's all said and done, but what the real big indicator that we're looking at the structure of an amino acid is going to be the nitrogen. And then what tells the protein what to do? Well, this is this last part called the functional group. This functional group is going to tell the protein what function it's going to carry out. So this is the whole structure of an amino acid. Notice on the left there you have the nitrogen, which should be a big indicator that we're looking at an amino acid structure. Okay, if you look at this picture, right, we've got the common amino acid structure at the top. Notice the T structure in the middle. And then down here we have two different types of amino acids. And they're different because of the functional group at the bottom. There are 20 amino acids that our body uses. And if you look at every one of these amino acids, what's going to be different for the most part is going to be this R group, this functional group. And a good way that we know we're talking about amino acids is most of these, except for a couple, end in INE, like serine and histidine and alanine and glycine and arginine and glutamine. They all end in INE. Sugars end in OSE, enzymes end in ASE. Your amino acids end in INE. So good little hints to help you when recognizing words and terms. And then last but not least, as far as the functionality, these are the major elements. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. The big new one is nitrogen. There are a couple that have sulfur, but I wouldn't worry about the sulfur. As long as you recognize that it has nitrogen with carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, the nitrogen should be the indicator for you when you're looking at the structures.